Hello, hello, hello. Hi, you guys. It's me, Dr. Torie, here for another episode of Be Victorious. I know y'all heard the singing. I'm starting to get much and much better. I miss it so much. But anywho, I have this wonderful young lady I would love for you guys to meet. What I love is that once upon a time, I thought that I was in this by myself. And when I tell you, there are people out here that are aces queens like me. And Leah is one of them. I'm telling you, she takes over Clubhouse, does her thing. And I cannot wait for this interview, you guys. Just come on in, Leah, because everybody's going to be excited that we are finally together. And I'm so excited. Oh my God, this is going to be so cool because the ACEs community has brought us together. You're amazing.
Absolutely.
It's Leah, y'all. Oh my God. Okay. Well, you know, I am. And this is the cool thing because we're here. And I think the lovely thing about us is that we're not alone.
Right. Not at all.
And we've been trying to get this information about ACEs however we can. And you
That's right.
do such a wonderful job already. So before we begin, let the world know who you are.
Thank you, Dr. Torie. I first want to give you your flowers for the work that you're doing and the people that you find. That you have a gift about finding people who are passionate about presenting this material and not afraid to say the things that need to be said and to go into the places that need to be gone into and shown the light on these topics. So I just want to commend you for that. You know, getting ready for this, I listened to a lot of the episodes, and everybody you bring on has, you know, they're speaking truth, and you can connect to that right away.
Thank you.
And so I think, you know, you have a gift for finding the right people to put on this platform and to give a voice on your podcast. So I just want to thank you for inviting me to be a voice on your podcast so that I can speak to your community and the work that you're doing. So I'm Leah Abraham, and I am a childhood trauma expert. I work with adults who are ready to begin healing their childhood traumas and seeing their addictions with new perspective. I'm also very active in the parenting communities, raising our children with emotional intelligence and conscious parenting. And I understand the importance of providing support to mothers who have ACEs, who have these adverse childhood experiences, because it's difficult to be a mom without any of that. But to have that to bring into motherhood, it can be very, very difficult. And we need support. We need support. We need to come together. We need healing. And so I'm very, very excited to be able to share what I know, the wisdom that I've gained from my experience, and to be a voice here on the podcast. So thank you.
You're welcome. See, you guys, I told you guys I'm going to bring you great people. And the wonderful thing is, we all have a story. And so, if you don't mind sharing your ACEs score, what's your ACEs score?
Yeah. So my ACEs score is a 4.
Okay.
And I say that score because, you know, there's a lot of trauma that happens with just one ACE. There's a lot of trauma that happens with 2, with 3, with 4, and as we increase it. And I love that you asked the question, what do you think about the updates to the ACEs? So I'm just going to go right into that.
Let's go.
I think, you know, ultimately, any attention that is being given to looking at our childhood and connecting it with what's happening to us as adults is going to be good. I think it's nice that they added these other categories, you know, the 4th category about war and about bullying and these other things that are very prominent. But one thing that I wish they would dive deeper into is the one question that they have around sexual abuse. Because, you know, that's my area that I focus on. I specifically help people who have gone through sexual abuse trauma. And to me, I think that is a huge area of focus. And if you don't mind, I'll just go into that as to why I believe that.
Come
Yeah,
on,
thank you.
let's give it to them. Let's go.
Yes. So, if there is sexual abuse, then you are being physically harmed. You are being emotionally harmed. You're being spiritually harmed. You're being psychologically harmed. There's so much that happens when there's sexual abuse involved. And so, one thing I really hope to see in the future, as they're giving more attention to ACEs and recognizing the value of having a tool to look at to kind of determine what's happening with your health as an adult based on the childhood experiences you've had, I really hope that they dive deeper into that question and make that a category on its own, because there's so much involved in that. And I speak very often of the imbalance around human sexuality on the planet because there's so much sexual abuse happening in childhood. And I talk about, if we look at the cycles in nature, we know that every cycle, reproduction and all of the sexual stuff happens in the adult part of the life cycle, when an organism has developed in maturity, mind, body, for us spiritually, emotionally, has developed in that intelligence to be able to handle something like reproduction and sexuality and coming together in that unity. So, every life cycle that you look at in nature, that's happening in the adult part of the life cycle. But humans are the only ones that are trying to alter that and trying to introduce sexuality or awaken sexuality when we're too young. So it's causing a big imbalance. And so that's one of the reasons why I hope to see that as we advance in this ACEs and we understand the importance of looking at them, that we dive deeper into that one question that they have around sexual abuse. So yes, thank you.
Because I think people have to also understand that the questions, when they did the original study, was a bunch of questions, and then they narrowed it down, but they narrowed it down to the questions that were relatable in 1998. It's 2023, and a lot of things have happened since, you know what I mean? So it's like, okay,
absolutely,
emphasis on one thing when we need to be addressing another, which is the reason why I'm glad that they did the updates and included stuff like bullying. That don't mean that they don't need to update the sexual abuse, because they have to. And I agree with you. Yes, they have the abuse in one category and the neglect another, but I think they need to subset it and do something about it. I agree with you 100%, because we're not doing enough to address it. So I agree with you. I do.
Yes. So thank you. And I apologize, but to get back to my score of a 4, when I first learned about these ACEs, I thought to myself, how can I only have a 4? Because the impact of the abuse that I had in childhood, I can relate to so many people who have 10s, and so I just wanted to kind of mention that, because if you take the ACEs and you have a low score, it doesn't diminish your trauma. I know many people that come on here say, I have a high score, and you always tell them that does not define you. And, and we can't attach to that score, whether it's the low score or the high score. We have to attach to our own personal experience of our trauma and begin to heal that. So I really wanted to kind of highlight that not everybody who's going to come on your podcast has those high numbers. Some of us have the lower numbers, but we still experience the same effects because of the trauma that was experienced in just those 4 categories. So yes.
Let's educate them, Leah. You're doing it, because really that is what it is. I also have a 4 too. I tell people depending on the day, I might have a 5. But no, I think people that are a 10 is like, oh, what's next? No, it doesn't define you. It doesn't define you at all. It just means that you're placed in different categories. But I want to go back to that category you talked about, because we don't address that category as much. It's not a lot of people that like to talk about the sexual abuse, and that's fine. I want people to feel comfortable, but what people have to understand and know is that it has an effect. if we don't address it,
Absolutely.
it's going to have an effect. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that's my thing. And I'm so glad that you're here, because these are the people that come to you.
Right. Yes. And it's
They know
interesting.
about ACEs.
Many of them do,
Okay.
and but it's not something that comes up in conversation because I have found, in the beginning of my work, I just did trauma,
Mhm.
but every one of my clients had the sexual abuse. And so I understood that, we gravitate towards those people who share similar experience and whose pain we understand. That's what I really have gotten, that we gravitate towards people who understand our pain. And so we can be in that dark together and not feel like alone in that dark. So yeah, sexual abuse is, I've kind of like um, niched down into the sexual abuse because it's so prevalent, and it's something that I understand on a deeper level. A little bit of my story is that I was abused from basically the time I was born until potty training age, pre-verbal. But
Yeah.
then growing up in a home where I had 6 younger siblings under me, and the things that were happening behind closed doors, so all of that kind of like energy of that house, that environment, and then being so disconnected from my body at such an early stage of my life, and continuing to have that disconnect until I began my healing journey,
Right.
and still working on trying to be in my body, so it
Because
affects us big time.
it is. And I think people have to understand that your healing journey isn't something that it's going to happen. And when you happen and you let it happen and you embrace it, you'll be fine. And I'm not saying fine like people aren't, but I can tell. I can tell when people are on their healing journey, because
Versus people that are still in denial, right? There's a
yeah,
big difference.
yeah,
Yeah,
because
there's still a lot of pain. There's a lot of pain in denial. There's a lot of pain in healing,
right.
but the healing opens us up to more beauty of the world, and the denial closes us off to that beauty. So
Right.
there is a big difference. Yeah.
Now, I will share this with you. I received an offer to do a conference to talk about trauma from an educational standpoint. I try to stay in my lane. I'm education. I don't
See,
want to
so
do stuff. Y'all can keep that. I want to just educate. And what I loved is that once we were talking and doing the things that we were doing, I was just trying to explain to them how it's when you have lived experiences, it makes it a lot more relatable than anything. And I think the people on the podcast are a lot of people that are sharing their stories of their lived experiences, and it's what's motivating them to do what they do. So I say this to say, is this the reason why? Because you talked about the fact that you went through some sexual abuse. Is this the reason why you went into this field?
I think so. I believe that when you step on that healing journey, there's a lot that happens when you release your denial and you kind of uncover and connect back to those traumas. You kind of accept them for being your reality. There's a lot that happens there, but eventually on the healing journey, the natural order of things is that there's this tipping point where you find yourself in a place where you want to give back, where you want to share what you've learned to help others avoid that experience, or to help others lessen the suffering that happens as a result of the trauma. If there's something that you can share that's going to help somebody, I think you get to this point on your healing journey where that's just a natural that's the natural next right step, is to step into that position of offering the wisdom that you have gained from your experience to somebody else so that they can lessen their pain. So yeah, it did kind of lead me into that, wanting to share what I learned. And originally I had wanted to write a book, but in order to write a book you have to have a platform. So I had to get on social media. And then when I started connecting with people, I realized, like, I don't have to write a book. I can start helping people now. And so now, almost 3 years later, I still want to write that book, but now I have a lot more information and a greater understanding of what people are needing, and how I can gift that, so
You're,
absolutely.
you're definitely a gift. You've helped and have had an impact on so many. And so what you're doing is purposeful. Your purpose, your passion, everything is there. I have a quick question. When did you learn about ACEs though? Is this something that just happened recently or you've been knowing about it for a while?
So it's probably been at the start of when I began sharing on Instagram, because you connect with the right people and the people who are on similar paths. And so I probably learned about this 2.5 years ago, and took the test. And I've gone through like this love-hate relationship with ACEs, because like I said, it's necessary to raise awareness however we can do that, and whatever is going to like open people's eyes to this connection between what's happened in childhood and the things that we're suffering from now in the body as adults. So
Right.
anything that we can do to raise that awareness, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
But then I go through and all these different things that I learn, and I'm like, it needs to go deeper. It needs to go deeper. And then when they made these changes, I'm like, okay, this is a good sign. This means that they're giving attention back to this ACEs study.
Yeah.
And I know you've done further research, presented further research, and I know other people are working towards that as well under the umbrella of ACEs. So we're kind of like compacting all this information into like this helpful resource. And so yeah, so I've been kind of following it. It's not something like that I present to my clients all of the time, because I want them to use it more as a tool,
Okay.
but not to get attached to that number, and put themselves into those boxes, because the healing journey is so unique to each individual,
It
based
is.
off of your perspective of life, the core beliefs that you're operating from, of course, the experiences you've had, and then what you've created for yourself now in adulthood. So there's so many different factors. And so I am very I use it as a tool, as a resource tool. Yeah.
And I think I do too. It's just the introduction. Honestly, I didn't care about the 10 questions in the beginning. I'll be totally honest with you. But when I do like professional development, if I'm doing conferences and things, it's a great introduction. If I don't do
Yes.
the ACEs quiz, I'm always going to do my I mean, I love her to death. Dr. Nadine Burke Harris is all that in a bag of chips to me. That TED talk for me is the introduction. So if I don't do the ACEs quiz, depending on my time, I do the TED talk. And the TED talk, when she was getting her thing going, no offense, but when I go into mine, I make sure I, do my
Replicate it, because it was powerful.
it's so powerful. It's so powerful. So for me, I agree with you. It's not that the ACE 10 questions are the all to end all. It's just an introduction. That's just like I let people know that number. Please don't let the number define you, because it means absolutely placement. Please don't let it define you. It's more of a placement than anything. So that's what it is.
Just this eye-opening awareness, right? Because so many people don't even know like the environment in which they were raised that was traumatic, because when we're in that environment, it's just our normal life.
Right.
And so being able to kind of see it from more of like a scientific perspective is kind of like, it helps people just be like, what? Like, oh my goodness. Like,
I am,
yeah.
if you would not believe me, but I actually taught science.
Yes.
So
How
is
perfect. How
right.
perfect. It doesn't surprise me at all that
Yeah.
life
So
would bring you
really,
here with that
yeah.
information.
I'm
Yeah.
seriously a researcher for a real psychology background, but I did the research aspect, so I love the numbers. So it was easy for me to crunch the numbers when I did the study that I did. And it was great. The feedback, everything. It's like, here's the tool. I found out what I needed. Here we go. And years later, not even years later, I talked to my dissertation chair and she was like, I'm kind of jealous. And I was like, what's up? She said, all your information is on the CDC, because these were recommendations. The community violence, I did my study on kids that were in Chicago. So community violence, bullying.
Yes.
I work with Student Against Violence Everywhere. I helped with trying to come up with curriculum for the Sandy Hook. Like, I've worked with people and I'm working with people to deal with adverse childhood experiences. So it's like, okay, let's do what we have to do. I only bring this up to say, when we get in the meat and potato, we cannot let it define us.
That's right.
And I think that is what people need to know and understand. They need to join us. I want this to be cool.
Healing needs to be cool, right? I love that you said that, Dr. Torie.
And the reason why I say that is because I am not ashamed. I have adverse childhood experiences. I have ACEs. Yay. You have ACEs. It's a lot of us that do. The CDC said it's 1 in 6. Let's be clear. They didn't put a number on the 1 in 6 to say we had a 10 or a 2. It's how many people have adverse childhood experiences. So my goal is just to make sure people understand, number one, that it's okay. And number two, if you get some type of idea and educate yourself, I think you'll be okay.
I love that you said that. I appreciate that so much, because we need to shift the perspective around dealing with our trauma, around processing trauma. Right now, there's just like so much fear and so much denial that it's like nobody wants to go there. But if we can somehow like remove the stigma and shift the perspective to one that it's like it's cool to heal, like that's what we need, especially for the younger generation, where it removes the fear and it's just like, all right, this is what happens when we get to a certain stage of our life and we want to advance and grow and make life better. Then this is like the natural progression, is that, okay, we're going to have to process some of our trauma. And it's not scary. It's not bad. It's just kind of like the next stage of growing up. You know what I mean? So I would love to be able to shift it into that perspective.
Is it understanding brings awareness brings understanding. So awareness plus understanding equals healing.
Yes, absolutely. That clarity that comes.
Yeah.
And that clarity brings us peace. And that's what everybody really wants, right? Is to just be at peace with who they are and where they're at and the life that they're living.
And that's it. So let me ask a question. How are your patients? So your clients, once they go through their healing journey, are they at their own pace? Are they like, what type of program? And the reason why I say that is because a lot of people want to know what is next once they found everything. So what's next?
What's next? Well, so I'll tell a little bit about my 5-step healing process. That's what I walk all of my clients through very first off. And then if we do individual one-on-one, whatever that's after. But everybody that I work with goes through the 5 steps of healing. And what I have designed this to do is to remove the fear around the healing process and to bring clarity to our situation. And so these 5 steps, I'll just go through them real quickly. The very first one is understanding our alignment, the alignment of our mind, our body, and our spirit in the present moment, what it feels like to be fully present where you are. Once you know what that feels like for you, it's easier to recognize when you are not in alignment, when your mind is somewhere else, you know. The second step is self-love. And what I'll say about self-love is that this step, all we focus on is acknowledging those parts of us that we are, you know, that we've cut ourselves off from, or that we've rejected, or that we don't like, you know, like, so our traumas, we normally like cut ourselves off from that. Certain aspects of who we are in childhood that we were told, you know, don't be too crazy or don't be too silly, you know, those we've shut those away from us. And then our addictions, we're like, I'm not that addiction. And so it's like there's all these like separate parts. But so when I talk about self-love, it's just acknowledging those parts and saying, oh yeah, I have trauma. Oh yeah, I remember I used to be silly and quirky and weird. Oh yeah, I do have addictions. And then saying, I accept those parts of me. And that's it. So we can show up as our whole self. All those parts are a part of us. So if we can acknowledge them and accept them, that's self-love at its finest, at its greatest. And then the third step is removing our denial and looking at our traumas for what they are, looking at trauma and seeing like, oh my gosh, the things that happened to me in childhood, that was traumatic. That was an adverse childhood experience. And kind of connecting that. And then the fourth step is looking at our addictions with clarity. Because, if we're come from trauma backgrounds, we carry a lot of pain. And how do we ease that pain? We use addictions. All of us have some type of way to suppress that pain or to help us survive through that pain. So looking at our addictions and acknowledging them for what they are. And then the fifth step is the tools that we take along our journey and the tools that we develop to help ourselves grow and to advance on the healing journey. So with those 5 steps, I think that we can revisit them all the time. That's what the healing journey is all about. Where's my alignment? Am I aligned here? If I'm not, what's going on? What triggered me from the outside? What core belief is being activated? Or, and how do I bring myself back into alignment? What tool can I utilize? So in those 5 steps, they help us journey that healing journey. And so to answer your question with my clients, like, you've seen Mick, you know what I mean? 2 years ago, Mick would not be, he wasn't sharing his voice. He wasn't sharing his poetry, and now he's confident in the words that he writes and speaks. And that is what healing brings. Healing reconnects us to who we are and allows us to appreciate and love that person and offer it to the world, and in doing that, we also receive back.
Yeah.
And so I see that with many of my clients, just this huge change that happens when you're willing to look at your situation with clarity and honesty, and without that fear. And so, yeah.
I love it. And guess what, you guys? This is why she's awesome. This is the person, and you all know Mick because I talk about Mick. He's like, when it comes to class, so I'll say that he is my top student. I'm serious. He's awesome. We have to do
I love that. Yeah.
But
He has put a lot of effort in these last 2 years into his own healing. I agree with you. Top of the class.
He's like a poster child. Like, you know what I mean? I remember him when we first started this, and to see his growth is so amazing. The way that he can express himself, the understanding of ACEs, because of course he loved you. Everything that you've done is amazing. And when I mean amazing, he is the example. So what's interesting is, guys, surprise, surprise. Yes, this is Leah. And this is the person that has helped Mick with so much. He's going to be so excited. But yes, I think that's what people also have to know, that your journey is a journey. And just for someone that has actually been following me, and I appreciate you guys so much for following me. You all saw Mick from the beginning, and you see how he has really transformed. He's an amazing person. The understanding of ACEs will really help so many people just understand a lot of the things that people have to know and understand is things that when they were younger are really not their fault at all. And I think that's understanding is so key for me, because the education aspect can help a lot. And so he's a great example. Yes.
I want to just speak to that for a moment. It's not our fault in childhood. And speaking specifically to sexual abuse, when we are children, we don't have the capacity to fully process an experience like that. We don't have it. Like, no child is capable of processing an experience like that. So it is never our fault, no matter how, the story has developed. We all are built with a pleasure system. So when we think about that childhood experience and we think it must have been my fault because it felt good, I just want to tell people that your body is working exactly the way that it was designed to work. And it's not your fault that somebody activated that in your body when you didn't have the capacity yet to process it emotionally. It is the responsibility of the adult or the older person that has the emotional intelligence to understand what's happening. It is their responsibility to guard their actions.
Right.
So it is never the fault of a child, even in those circumstances where, it felt good. Our body is designed like that. But it's not our fault that someone chose to activate that in us before we were ready. So I really appreciate you reminding us, like, we need to hear that all the time. It was not your fault as a child. There was nothing you could do, and there was no way that you could be a part of something that you can't comprehend.
Right.
There's no choice in that. There's no choice in that. And when our choice is removed, there is no fault.
And see, that's the reason why I like to throw in stuff like
Mm,
generational trauma or, the freeze and fawn response, the
mm,
things that actually happen to us that people don't know,
mhm.
because we take that ownership and accountability when it happens, and it's not okay. It's not.
It's not
And I think
us.
that's the reason why I want to get education of ACEs out there so bad, because it can help. It can help
Yeah.
so much, just understanding. And I think for Mick, I'll give you an example. When he went on the podcast, he talked about his hair. When I
Mm,
first met him, his hair used to be in his face. Used to be in his face all the time. And then once he explained the reason why his hair was in his face was because of the abuse and because of things, and the fact that his mom used to take his, pull his hair. It made
mm,
sense to me. You know what I mean? But the
mhm,
fact that now we can see his face, we can
mhm,
see that he is healing, he's growing. He's not letting that define him.
mm,
So for you all that listen and take notes, that's a good example, because
mm,
you and I both know from the beginning we couldn't see his face at all. He would
mm.
always hide, or he wouldn't want to show. And the fact that he is doing it now, to me, is he's talking. I love his poetry. I was on the
Mm.
conference this weekend. I thought it was great. It was an amazing conference. It's like the things that he's doing and the placement he's going, he's really taking advantage of this
Yes.
healing. And for that,
Yes.
I have to go ahead and give you your kudos for real,
Mm,
because you've been a huge advocate. This is seriously what you do. And this is the purpose of me having podcasts. Serious
absolutely. To
people.
introduce people to
Yeah,
get this message out to a wider audience, to network these
yeah,
ideas with more people and into more communities. It's
yeah.
it's important. It's important that we do these collaborations.
I tell people all the time, I'm not in competition with anybody at all. Anybody can do a podcast. LP does his podcast. He does the
That's awesome.
do it, talk about it, talk about it. I'll go on, support you, do 3 versions. I don't care. The more and more people we get the gathering of understanding, then I think we will be okay, because I
Yes.
feel like in the mental health space, we have to do this, because as you know, there's not enough mental health funding to help us all. And right now we're
Right.
all struggling, which means that's the reason why we're all at an all-time high. Mental health is just
Mm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in the so I want to just say, like, I appreciate you giving me those flowers in regards to Mick, but Mick gets all the flowers. Every single one of us who chooses our own healing, who chooses to take that step onto the healing path, we're the one that gets the flowers, the person that took the step onto that healing path. Because once you take a step onto the healing path, the right people come into your experience. They show up. You connect with the right people. You find the right people. So I just happened to step onto Mick's healing path at the right time when he was ready for me. But he was ready.
you're right.
He created that safety in his life to be able to take that next step. And he chose to
Yeah,
take that next step. So the reminder that, all of us who do this work, this coaching work, what our goal is to guide you back home to yourself,
mhm,
because you are your own greatest healer. I am my own greatest healer. Nobody is going to know what my body needs, what I need more than me. And so this, there's not enough funding. There's not enough funding for what we need. But if we remember to empower people on the individual level, and we're taking our healing into our own hands, we don't need your money because it's happening in here. The healing is happening in here because I choose to reconnect with myself and to reconnect with my, inner guidance system and my purpose and my passion. And that's how I'm going to be able to show up in this world the way that I need to. So I think it's important to remember that we are our own greatest healer, and you're wanting to find those people that help guide you back to yourself, back to your own knowing of what you need. So yeah, it's exciting. It's powerful.
Oh, what I tell y'all, she's good. I knew it. I've been waiting for this. I knew it. Oh my God.
Thank you.
And your energy just exudes. My God. And I think that's probably the reason why so many people attach, because it's relatable. You've been through this. You don't want people to go through the sexual abuse that you went through.
No, we got to talk about it. We got to make an awareness. And the more adults who are willing to speak these things and who are willing to let go of the denial that they have around it, the more adults can stand up for children. Right now, like the way the world works, we put so much onto the shoulders of the children. It's like, a lot of in client conversations, a lot of them will be like, yeah, I told my mom about it. And she said, well, why didn't you tell me when you were a child? Why didn't you tell me? It's like, I'm a child. I'm being sexually abused. Like I'm scared of you. But yet you're putting this pressure onto the child. Like the child should have known what to do, and a lot of times I see that because the adult is still in denial about their own trauma. And if we're in denial about our own trauma, we can't be the voice for our child. We can't be the voice for the child who needs us because it's too triggering for us. So the more adults who do their healing, who release their denial and connect to their own trauma and see it for what it is, the more they'll be able to stand up for the next generation and not put it on the shoulders of children. Children can't, they can't fight an adult. They can't negotiate with an adult. The other adults have to stand up for the children, but they can only do that if they've done the work for themselves. So it's very important that, we make this connection, we start seeing it. So
you are a breath of fresh air.
I can say the same for you, Dr. Torie. Thank you.
This is it. This is it. They just need to listen. This one is going to be so amazing because you're telling your truth. You're speaking your truth. You know what it is.
I want to.
And it's okay. And we're healing and we're doing something about it.
We're taking action. I want to talk in terms of what we're just speaking of. There's the question in the ACEs that says, no one in your family loved you or thought you were important or special. That one, every time I read that one, it hits me so hard because so many children feel like that. And especially if you're being sexually abused, nobody cares about what you want or who you are or the things you want to say. And so putting it onto the child, why didn't you tell me? Because most of those children felt like no one in their family loved them or that they weren't important or special. Right. And so remember, and I'm just saying that, remember to listen when your children speak, because children don't make shit up. I mean, they can be conditioned and that can become a survival mechanism. But when they're very young or they're talking about something that they can't comprehend, like sexual abuse, Like
Right.
you got to listen. You got to listen, because if you shut them down, they're going to check that box. No one in my family loved me or thought I was important or special. That, out of all the questions, that's the one that like hurts me the most, you know? Carrying that, because that right there turns into a core belief of I'm not enough, I'm not worthy, I don't deserve, and I'm unlovable. And most of us carry those beliefs from childhood into adulthood. So we move through life with the belief that we don't deserve, we're unlovable, you know, and I'm not worthy. And so what
In a
kind of
sex
life do we create
relationship.
for ourselves with those beliefs in relationships? Absolutely. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that too.
Are hitting I'm telling you, because these are the conversations that we have to have. And I
Yeah,
don't think it's hard to have them. We just
it's
have
not.
to be comfortable with our lived experiences
Mm.
and talk about it. So again, I keep going back to this, you guys, because again, I do have guests that don't know about ACEs. I do have guests that don't know how to heal. But here I have someone that knows about ACEs and knows, and people that you all have seen on the podcast. We're all in this community, you guys. We're not alone. We want you guys to join.
Right. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And then on that note, you know, a lot of times people think like if you're on the spiritual path, you know, that you become like this like reserved person, or you know. And here's the thing, like I have never had more fun in my life than I have now, you know. I still like to go out dancing, and I'm not opposed to drinking. I enjoy drinking when I'm out dancing. Like I have never been more comfortable in my own skin, and that's all the parts of me. That's all the parts of me. We don't give up anything when we're healing. We give up our pain. We give up our pain and our trigger points, but we don't give up anything that we love about ourselves when we choose healing. We amplify it. We amplify it. And I think that's important for people to understand, that you don't choose healing and then you become like this like saintly person. You choose healing and you become more of who you've already been, you
Exactly.
know, and you're not afraid to show up as
That's
who
the
you
thing.
really are.
I push for extracurricular activity, whether it could be a hobby, where it could be. So, like, of course, you know, I'm a single mom and I'm heavy on extracurricular activities for my girls, and they're doing great with it because it takes away from the misunderstandings of the things that happen to them. Yes, their parents divorced. Yes, are relocated. Yes, they have ACEs. However, they're doing good in their extracurricular activity. The extracurricular activity is what's helping with the other things, the social aspect, the emotional aspect. It's helping with those type of things, which is the reason why I encourage people from an educational standpoint. Find you a hobby. Find something that you like. I have to shout out Chris. It's one of my sisters. She has been on this skating journey, and just to see her progress and her growth of her skating, it's what brings her peace. It's what
Mm-hmm.
helps her. It helps her define the things. Yes, she's a single mother. Yes, she has ACEs. However, this is how she heals. This is what helps.
However, she still gets to have fun
Yeah,
and be a creative
yeah,
expression and
yeah,
try new things and learn
yeah.
and grow in different areas, and move her body so that the stagnant energy can
Yes.
flow. And there's so much to physical activity because it helps us to move energy and to be connected to our body. Like you have to be in your body to do these things. And
Glad
so it's
that
very, very helpful.
if there's someone else here saying exactly what I've been saying. I
Yes.
know I'm not, but I know what I'm talking about.
The hell yeah, you do.
And this is it. You are it. So what you're doing is defining the narrative and giving people better understanding and clarity of healing.
Yeah, of healing. You said something earlier about you know, our fight, flight, and freeze and fawn response. I wanted to just speak to that a little bit because I think it's important for people to understand that when our nervous system is activated, when we live in those environments where we always have to be on guard, we're constantly in the mode of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And I wanted to touch on that real quickly because we may have learned somewhere in school about these responses that animals go into. If you're being hunted, an animal will either like run or fight, or they freeze and they pretend they're dead or whatever. And then when the threat is past, they'll wake up and they'll shake out, or they're dead. But with humans are the only ones who can fawn. And that's where you learn to be what the people around you want you to be. And I think it's very important for all of us who come from those trauma backgrounds to understand that response, because that fawn response creates people pleasers. It creates people that work out of obligation, and we're very disconnected from ourselves. And so it's hard for us to show up for ourselves when we have learned only to show up as the other person wants us to or expects us to. And so that is a huge when our nervous systems are activated and we're in survival mode, many of us will learn that particular survival method of how to fawn and give people and show up as you expect me to be, not
Right.
who I am, but who you expect me to be. And we carry that from childhood into adulthood. And that's why we have so many people pleasers, and we do things out of obligation all the time. So it's important to understand that we're still in that survival mode when we're in that fawn state. So that calming of the nervous system, creating safety for ourselves, that allows us to reconnect with self and show up for ourselves, not for anybody else. So I just wanted to touch on that because I heard you say that. And I always like to notate that humans are the only ones that do a fawn response. No animal is going to be like, the sheep isn't going to go to the wolf and be like, oh, I brought you this so that you'll be nice to me. And like
Right.
only humans can do that because we have this beautiful creative mind, which is it's a useful tool, but it can also be the very thing that causes a lot of our suffering if we don't understand the power of our human mind and what it can do and how it adapts. And so, yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Tell you something. If people did not know that this was an educational podcast, they know today, because a lot today. You are a powerhouse. And I keep bringing it up. I know. But guess what? I know somebody learned from this one. They had to. They learned from a lot of them. But the wealth of knowledge that you brought here for this podcast is so amazing. I'm looking forward to collaborations. I'm looking forward to when people say, okay, I need who can I contact? I mean, if you have not met Leah, then you need to type, because that's what you did for me today on this podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Seriously. And again, people already know, like how we said, it's the energy that we bring in the room. The conversation comes from there. I'm looking at the questions, but our energy was so in sync. This is it. You guys, this is Leah, and I told you guys she was going to bring it, and she's brought much knowledge and information. So if you have any questions or concerns, if you did not take notes, you should have. If you need more information, Leah, tell people where they can find you out on the social media.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Torie. I appreciate all your kind words, and just the reminder that we're a reflection of each other. You had a gentleman on your podcast, and he said, water meets water where it's at, and we connect because we're on that same vibe.
I agree.
But yes, please find me on Instagram. That's where I'm at primarily. That's where I engage most in the DMs and everything. So I'm at Leah Abraham 1111. My Instagram is tied to my Facebook. So if you're a Facebooker, you can see my story, you can see my content, but I don't really engage there too much. I'm also active on Clubhouse. I have a house on Clubhouse called the Trauma Drama House, Trauma Drama. And if you go into that house, I have almost in March, it will be 3 years. So I have like 2.5 years of replays. And, as I mentioned before, like I hold a room and we discuss sexual abuse. We discuss all these different subtopics because we have come to realize that sexual abuse affects every aspect of our life. So we talk about all different subtopics. So you can go through the replay list and scroll through there and find a subtopic that interests you. And I have some amazing co-moderators there with me who share their experience, who speak also. So find me in Clubhouse. I have a lot of good content there. And then I'm on other platforms as well, but Instagram is my primary one if you want to engage with me, or you can go into the Clubhouse rooms and join me live there. So I share in my Instagram story when I'm going to be holding those rooms. I used to hold it every Thursday, but come the new year, I'm going to be doing some live events at my local library here on Thursdays. So I'm not yet sure what my Clubhouse schedule will be like in the new year, but you can still find all the replays there. So yeah, and on all the social platforms, Leah Abraham 1111. Thank you.
You guys, another episode. Put a nail in it. We did this one. This one was, I think all of them are good. But
all of them are good, Dr. Torie. All of them are good. Like I said, you attract the people that speak truth. Yeah. And what's beautiful about it is you can make 1 billion episodes and have a new person every time. And if they're speaking truth, it's always going to be needed. We're going to need another episode of somebody speaking truth, because really we're just a handful in the world of billions of people that need this help. So the bigger the handful get, the more those people get what they need. So
I'm ready for the challenge. I am. I'm so ready for it. And I thank you so much for joining me. So again, you guys, another episode. You can find me everywhere. Y'all know me, Dr. VicTORIEus everywhere, VicTORIEus everywhere. I'm very excited, and may I announce this here. I have actually decided to join my own venture and turn my mentorship and doing an ACEs emphasis. So you'll see some information on Be VicTORIEus Foundation. And what it is I'm turning my mentees, they're acknowledging, and they already have acknowledged that they have ACEs, but we're going to go ahead and put it in the forefront for other people to know and understand. And I think once the youth get involved and we have the Be VicTORIEus ACEs ambassadors out there, they can help get this information out there because it's very needed. So I'm very excited about that. By the time that this podcast goes, everybody will see it and everybody will know. So you guys continue to stay tuned. People like me and Leah are doing what we need to do to get this information out here. So we thank you guys for joining in, letting us know that you're here. Join us because we're the cool ones. We understand our ACEs, and we're the ones that's healing. So join us because we want to help you guys and help you heal on understanding ACEs and help you with your healing journey. So again, thank you guys so much for another wonderful episode. Bye-bye.